Hello and welcome to the Green Profit Academy Pros Podcast. This show digs into the challenges in growing a lawn care and landscape business while maximizing your profit. I'm Christeen Era.
And I'm Steve Bousquet. We are the green industry experts in profit, growth, and leadership. Hello, Christeen. How are you?
I am hanging in there. We've got a lot going on. We were just chatting about that before hitting the record button. You know, we've got our annual Mind Your Own Business retreat coming up in 2 weeks. By the time this episode's dropped, it would have already have happened. And I'm excited and kind of juggling chaos at the same time. So it's, you know, lots of fun and interesting things going on. Keeps me on my toes.
Yeah, super excited for our second Mind Your Own Business retreat being held at Granville in Granville, Tennessee at the Wildwood Resort and Marina. Beautiful place. I know a lot of people that are coming are super excited, so looking forward to that. Today's episode, we're going to be exploring and identifying the need for change and how to plan and execute those changes.
Yes. Yeah. And I think this was an important topic because it was something I kind of stumbled along, you know, on when I was researching some other things. And I went, you know, that would be a really great podcast episode because you and I have both been there in, you know, the trenches and experiencing pain points and pinches in our business. And we both kind of went, something needs to change. You know, what is that? How do we manage it? And I love talking about change management. I love raising our awareness as, you know, business owners and entrepreneurs. And as well with that awareness, you know, improving our business acumen, right? Because that really gets us there faster.
Yeah, our business acumen and our emotional acumen and our question asking acumen and our ability to read financials. I mean, it's our system acumen. So a lot of times when when do we need change, right? When the pain is so great, when we have all these pinch points, bottlenecks, and people in our business and our life might be telling us we need to change, right? Our customers are unhappy. Our we have high turnover. We have low productivity. We're not making enough money to live, to meet our needs and our goals. So if any of those things are happening, we have to change. But how do you identify what is the one thing that we have to change first?
Well, I mean, if we were really going to, you know, say what's the one thing from after walking this road, I would say the first thing we need to change is start changing our mindset, right? It's
our mindset. Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. It's like it just popped in there like, oh, I know this, like my ABCs. The first thing we need to change is our mindset. So that's really going to help us as leaders and entrepreneurs to be more aware of what's happening, you know, in our business externally and external factors that come into play to look at, well, is it time for change? What does change look like? And be responsive to the need for change versus reactive. And I know, you know, with my strengths coming into play, I'm really great at managing chaos and being reactive, but that always isn't the way that we need to show up as leaders because it can create stress for people that aren't good at managing chaos and being reactive, you know, which then we can lose team members over that. We can lose customers over that. So yeah, I think mindset is the first place to start.
Absolutely, right? Because the same thinking that got us to the point where we need to change is not the same thinking that's going to help us figure out to overcome these challenges and move forward. So we need to change our mindset, or that's the first place to start, right? And that starts usually with questions, powerful questions, past the easy questions that we're typically faced with on a day-to-day basis. So what are some of the key components of effectively managing and adapting to change within an organization?
So we all know organizations, you know, it's inevitable that as we grow, change is upon us, right? We need to be able to identify change. We need to, you know, look at it from the internal aspect with our team member and the external. So there's two environments that are impacting our companies and our team members and our customers. It's what's happening inside the organization, and it's also what's happening outside the organization. And we talk about this a little bit in pumpkin planning when we say, who are you serving in your market, right? And you might have a competitor in your market who's doing all these things, but based off of how your business is structured, you might not do all those things that they do. You may be really good at one or two things. The team that is on your team players may be really good at executing those. So we don't necessarily always want to compete with others in our market. And we want to have a deep understanding of who's in our market, right? So external factors, what do they need? Who are we serving? And then the internal factors, like who's on our team? What strengths do they have? How do they show up? Where are the gaps? So being aware of those factors, those are some key components, that will show up. And it's no matter what, whether you're a new little company and you've just gotten in the game, or you've been doing this for 30 years, change is inevitable. Like you've got to move from the survive to thrive in so many different parts of your organization.
So a change could be just realizing and having the awareness of, what your talents and strengths are within your own company and focusing on those more, focusing on the talents of your customers. In other words, the customers we have a crush on that, we love them, they love us, and not trying to please all the people that are cringe-worthy customers that give us a cringe. Because for years, we tried to, please everyone. And, all the people that were cringe customers, how can we make them happy? And the realization is you can never make them happy. Matter of fact, we have that in our contract. Actually, we don't have that in our contract. It doesn't say make you happy anywhere in any of our contracts. We have a deliverable, and the people who love that deliverable are our crushes and are the people who don't love us and are cringes. I did a talk last week, and I was sharing about how we fire certain customers that are so cringeworthy. That we fire them every year, and people are looking at me like, you fire customers? I'm like, yeah. We fire customers if they're super cringe. So that was a whole new mindset or change that they could consider, that they could actually fire the customers that were damaging not only the mental health of the employees and team that work there, but the financial bottom line of that company.
Yeah. And that's one of the conversations we have with every client that starts with us, as we say, hey, we do terminate contracts, right? We're very picky about who we work with. And we want to make sure that it's a mutual relationship, right? That we're both thriving on both sides. Like business doesn't have to be horrible. We don't have to dread going into work. We don't have to dread working with our vendors. So I think it's important to set those expectations of, hey, we want to thrive together. How can we best work together? If it turns out that it's not a great relationship, we will go separate ways. It doesn't mean that we don't have to be kind to each other. It doesn't mean that there's a level of unprofessionalism that has to take place. It just means let's help you find someone that you work with better. And that's okay.
And you brought up another point about all these, trying to keep up with our competitors or doing all these different services and offering all these different things for sale. But we don't know their balance sheet. We don't know their P&L. We don't know if they're making any money at it. A lot of times, in the Pumpkin Plan book, and they talk in Profit First, they talk about, the landscaper that first he's like mowing the lawn, and then he's washing the windows, and he's fixing the roof, and, he's cleaning the chimney, he's doing the leaves, he's doing the sidewalk, he's doing a water feature, all these different things. And, that was my mindset, like how many things, driveway sealing, annual flowers, bulbs, whatever was turning a dollar. And it was just always fragmenting my focus, my talent pool, and my capital. and finally coming, to the mindset of and changing that, this is what we really do well. This is what I love to do. So I'm going to focus on that. And a lot of people will say, well, it's lawn applications, or it's drainage, or it's, hardscapes. It's really what you're passionate about and where your talents line up. I know people in all different focuses, and that's the key. They have a focus. Focus is the key. It's not lawn spraying. I know people that are almost broke in lawn spraying. So it's not lawn spraying. It's not hardscapes. It's where you're focusing on.
Yeah. So we want to make sure, when you're running your business, identifying some of the key components, this is going to be recognizing, like, what are your current strategies? Do you have any? Maybe it's the fact that you don't have any strategies, and that's what needs to change, and that's okay. Identifying what processes are in place. Are they transferable? Are the systems still serving, the company? Are they effective? Are they aligned with the company's goals and objectives? So these are some important points. And I see, and, I know I've made this mistake before. Steve, you and I have supported each other in making changes in our businesses when we're realizing this isn't working anymore. Like, our goals have changed. Our values are more aligned. We have different people on our team, and we need to change some of the systems and processes that supports our delivery, that supports our team members, maybe it's part of the customer service communication. So I think that raising the awareness and being okay, with letting old things go so you make room for new things is part of the key components that are identifying change and going forward with it.
Yeah, and that's one of the things as entrepreneurs, as business owners, we're used to figuring things out. And there's a lot of components that if we can't figure it out, we're not quitters. So if you're in a landscape lawn care business, you're not a quitter. If you own a business or you're a business owner, you're not a quitter. So we spend a lot of time and resources and energy, and we'll even sacrifice part of our own personal life to try to figure out how to solve certain issues that are not in our strengths. And it could be by offering a service. It could be by offering a service at a low price. Why can't I sell this one service? 6 other people are cheaper than me. Well, stop. Don't figure out how to be cheaper. If they're all going broke doing that, it's not, how do I not go broke being cheap at this service? Find out who your crush customers are and what they buy, and have your strategy surround that, as opposed to imagine the strategy of how do I become cheaper than 6 people that don't know their numbers, and I guarantee you they can't tell you their gross profit margin on that. They're just all racing to the bottom. And I have to argue with people about that because that is so ingrained in the thought about that. And I'm like, well, where do you make all your money? Oh, over here. Is that a competitive field? Oh, no, we're pretty much own the market in that. Okay. Do you love the customers? The best customers are those customers. All right. So, but as entrepreneurs, somehow we take the responsibility. We got to fight this fight of figuring it out. And we don't.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things is how stubborn entrepreneurs are, right? It's like, we'll die on that hill. We keep doing the same thing over and over again. There needs to be a point where we take a pause and we go, is this working? Has this worked in the past? Is my business continuing to be chaotic? And that was something that, even as a leader, I had to take a pause and look at and say, okay, how am I showing up and leading my team? Is that productive and efficient? Or is it creating some problems that I don't enjoy managing? And what I realized is it was creating some problems that I did not enjoy managing. And so I had to ask myself some new questions, looking at just even internal factors, like what technology do we use? Who are we serving? Are we serving all the right customers, like you were saying? Who are the demanding customers? What team members seem to get our core values? So I had to kind of take a pause instead of trying to make, that square peg fit in that round hole, and think of things differently. And then I also had to realize what needed to change with me as a leader in order for things in the company to move forward without the friction that was existing. So I think that that's another, component, is looking at what can we change in the company where maybe we need to make some technological advances. Maybe it's mindset and leadership. Maybe it's kind of clearing out the bad team members, the bad apples out of our cart. So there can be many different aspects that we, come up when it comes to what needs to change. And I would advise, we don't want to change everything at once. We don't want to tip over the whole apple cart. We want to look at what's going to create the most traction for our business and, what is the biggest pain point in the moment.
So the hardest thing that I see for myself and for other people is change, right? So, and when we know we have to make a change, we can't typically do it alone. It's hard to do it alone. You might be able to do it initially alone, but to be sustainable and keep going through all the rough patches and when it gets challenging, it's better to have somebody on your team. So that's one of those things that we really need to lean into, realizing that we don't have to carry the ball by ourselves. We don't have to carry the whole change. And you talk about this on a frequent basis. Who's going to champion the change? Who's going to be the champion? As a business owner, we can only carry so much. So who is going to help you with this? Who's going to be the champion?
Yeah, and that was another hard lesson I had to learn, because even looking back now, in 2017, which really wasn't that long ago, right? 6 years ago. And I was struggling letting go of my email. It's like, oh my gosh, what if I miss something? What if this person doesn't, handle the communication properly? There are all these what ifs. And I really had to pause and go, okay, if I say yes to this, if I say yes to holding on to my email and dying on that, the email is mine hill, right? Then what? Like, what am I going to have time for then? So, letting go of things and making sure that you have certain people on your team that can champion forward projects, technology, opportunities and support you in that as a business owner. That is a game changer when it comes to change in a business and it comes to growth and implementing strategies. And it all for me started with being okay with letting go of my email. I mean, my adaptability is low. Like I don't like a lot of change, but interestingly enough, I do change a lot of things. And I think that's where my, strategic strength shows up and supports me going, hey, it's okay. We're going to find a way through, and here's the plan. So that really helps, when you have those champions on your team and you identify, what am I not good at? Where are my weak strengths? And, who needs to be here to support me?
So identifying what needs to be changed is always difficult, right? And it's the most important thing to identify it so then you can take action on it. And there's 3 kind of hacks I use to identify, what needs to change, right? So if I go home and talk about a client, a customer, or vendor more than 3 times, I get 2. My wife says, you're the owner, do something about it. So if I'm talking about it, if I'm talking about a problem or a challenge or a person, that is where the change needs to happen. Or if it is the activity or person is so draining that cringe or every time you have to deal with this, whatever it is, the task, the service, it just drains your energy and you want to procrastinate around it, that's a change point. And the other change is, what keeps me awake at night? What am I waking up at 2 or 3 in the morning? And it used to be cash flow. And that's why I love Profit First, because I sleep until 4:30, 5 o'clock now. I'm not waking up in the middle of the night going, oh my gosh, how am I going to meet payroll? Because payroll's already in the account. So I knew I had to change whatever keeps me up at night too. So those are like 3 little hacks that I use to quickly identify it. Because during the day, I feel so in it. It's so overwhelming. It just feels like there's no way to solve it. So how do we solve it, right? It starts with being strategic and developing a clear vision and strategy for the desired outcome, the goal, and then creating a actionable plan detailing all the steps and resources required in allocating responsibilities to, the champion, and also, really stepping into your strengths. One of the things as a Clifton strength coach that I work with is, okay, this is the vision, this is the goal. What 3 strengths are you going to choose out of your top 10 to use to achieve this goal, and what are the action steps for those strengths and talents?
Yeah, and that was one thing. We just finished up our emerging leader program, and we did this exercise, right? Where it's like, what are your three strengths that out of your top 10 strengths that are going to show up to help you, lead, right, effectively. And it was just so insightful, like digging deeper and being more aware, and then identifying action steps being tied to that. So I love that concept of, the change champion, right? Like who's gonna be in charge of that, and then having them lead that charge to influence and support other employees in the company. So as the owner, you can focus on something else. And I think that, that's really important, because no matter what, like once we recognize the need for change in our company, we need to create a plan and we need to execute those changes effectively. We don't want to be that owner. And we've all talked about this, where we come home from a conference, we have all these ideas or some sort of business event, and we walk in and we tell our team, hey, now we're going to do this, guys. Okay. And then we're going to do this, and we're going to do this. This conference was so great. Like, wait until I share this stuff with you. And they're sitting there thinking, here we go again. Like, now it's just going to be chaos. And then there's going to be like one thing that happens, and the other 100 ideas are going to go out the window, and they're not going to happen. So, having a plan in place, making sure you have your champion on your team, and, making sure that you have that commitment from your team. And we go over this. There was a class that I was a part of, and I love some of the strategies that they shared, and I put them together and added some additional ones into a, champion, right? How to implement change in your business. It's one of my favorite slide decks that, we go through this little workshop, and it helps businesses understand kind of like the 6 steps to implement a successful change in your company. So yeah, definitely a change champion. And then I think the next thing that's most important is clear communication in your company, right? Because as entrepreneurs, we're not that great at communicating our expectations and needs.
No, and I've shared, if you've listened to this podcast, I spent 20 something years being mad at people who were not meeting the expectations that I never shared with them. And once I started sharing expectations or asking them of their own expectations, it helped to really clarify our relationship and, have me support them, and they could support me a lot better. And a lot of that. So I'm going to the Green Industry Expo next week in Louisville. By the time this airs, it'll be over. And I'm bringing my top 2 senior lawn technicians, right? And one's the tech supervisor, and the other one's kind of our senior tech consultant person. So, if they see something, they're going to bring it back. They're going to champion it, not me, because they're my first followers. They have first followers in the company, and they're going to own that. That's why they're going. It's going to be they're very serious. So they'll be the champions on that. So some of the things, we come back, and I've done it to my team. We want to change stuff, right? And the challenge is, and I did this with Profit First, right? I didn't have enough information. I did not give my team enough information. And then the other thing was, I didn't share the outcome with them. What I was actually trying to get to was have this automated money management system in the business where I didn't have to worry about it. They didn't have to worry about it. They didn't have to ask me what to do when the money came in or how to pay stuff. It was automated. And that led to, my 4-week vacation. So the information, the outcome, and then the permission. Right. So making sure our team understands what permissions they have, what can they do, so they don't always have to come back to us and ask us questions about everything. So really being right up front, and also the confidence level. So making sure that our team has the confidence. So knowing that as we go through these changes and they champion them, it's new to them. They're gonna stumble. They're gonna fumble. They're gonna make mistakes. That's part of it. I've made enough mistakes. I make mistakes. There's just no way people go through any kind of changing process and not have some challenges that they could have made this decision instead of that decision based on the information. But we have to know that up front. So information, outcome, permission, and confidence is really crucial for your team to be aware of those.
Yeah, and I think also creating that space for them to give feedback. And that's one thing like my team has shared with me is that there's so much that they can do that they have ownership of, to make certain changes or adjustments, or put something in place. And when I do bring something to the table and I say, hey, I really want to do this, like this last year, we've been focusing on automations in our company, which in any time you're working with technology, and I love technology, I've always leaned into it. There are so many challenges and pain points that come up. Like one of the things we implemented a new calendar system, and I got to the point where I was like, if I hear one more thing about the calendar system not working the way it's supposed to, I'm like, no one wants to know me. Like I was at that point. But there's challenges that come up with this. And what was great was getting the insight from the team, right? Like we changed from just giving the information out in a PDF form of saying, hey, here's the dates and times, add them to your calendar. There was errors in that, right? There's a human involved. That's normal. Or they'll be like, oh, I forgot to add it to my calendar. Or, so there's all these other problems. And that was the feedback that the team gave me is, well, we get on a call and we support this client and we found they're just not adding it to their calendar. It's a lot of work. It's something they're not great at. So then we went, well, what can we do differently, right? What technology can we lean into? Is there an opportunity there? So we're like, well, we'll just give them a calendar link. Now it went from, let's say, a 40% success rate to like an 85 to 90% success rate. So I'm like, that's a lot better, right? And I think some of the challenges would be in just this particular situation that there's not a lot of technically inclined people out in this industry. So it's like, well, how else can we support them? So we give them a video, we give them a link to set up a call with us. So just allowing that space for my team to give feedback and for me to give my honest feedback to my team, even if it wasn't positive at some points, it was a safe space for us to communicate and to figure out what other challenges are there and what can we do about it. Right? What's an effective solution? So I think that's really important. And it also gave my team permission to support this change in the business and to support me. And as well, they were supporting you, Steve. So with, all of our complaints and issues that we had.
So I'm kind of laughing because one of my good friends runs an IT department for a large insurance company, worldwide, and he's the North American, director. And his biggest frustration with his IT team is they don't read their emails and they don't update their calendars. So, it's so funny to me that this is what they do and they're doing I think it's a human thing because he's like, it's literally the most frustrating thing because he's like, well, did you read the email? Well, it's in the calendar. Oh yeah, I didn't add that. So it's when we get together, his Friday night second drink story is around how frustrated he is with his team for not reading their emails. And a lot of it will happen with onboarding. So they're onboarding these people, and the person who does they get these new high security, laptops. They have to load all this software on them and then send them out, but they don't read the email for like 4 days, so they're behind. So it's just funny. People, we're all facing the same thing. Well, it's a challenge. So he's trying to figure out how to fix that challenge. Now, one of the things that I've found in change or challenges, I like to call it the 1/3 rule. So when I make a change, 1/3 of my team is the early adopters. They're right on board right away, 100% behind me. They're with me. They're ahead of me. Then there's the next third that we have to coach and train and help along, and they'll end up getting there, the mid adopters. Then there's the late adopters or never adopters. So, they still do stuff the same way. They don't want anything to do with change. Eventually they will change when it gets to the point that's the only way that operates. So, there's a realization around that, I have never found I'm going to get 100% immediately. I have another 1,000-day rule. So by the time we start talking about it, implement it, the changes are made, we adjust it, we get everybody on board and everyone's doing it. It's about 1,000 days.
Core Growth Strategies provides business growth management solutions through cloud accounting, bookkeeping, and strategic business consulting programs. Our team works with small businesses in lawn care and landscape and trade industries throughout the U.S. We increase our clients' business acumen by creating business performance transparency through financials and strategic advisement based on industry best practices and benchmarks. Our experienced team provides support, guidance, and coaching, thereby allowing our clients to connect with viable data and discover their own solutions. Core Growth Strategies programs and services are designed to get your business from where it is now to where you have always dreamed it to be. Visit us today at coregrowthstrategies.com and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. Don't miss our exclusive limited time podcast special. Just mention promo code GPA Pro to any member of our team during your complimentary consultation, or enter the promo code on our site when you sign up for one of our online programs. That's promo code GPA Pro. Yeah, and I like that because it's true. It's about 1,000 days, right? So no matter how well of a plan we have in place, the structure, training and development with a team is really important, like making sure, and not just with like our team, but with our customers, right? So we have to train our customers, because if we don't train our customers, we're giving them the choice of how they're going to interact or respond or react to any sort of communication we put out there, whether it's written, verbal, no matter what, in person, like they're going to show up however they want to if we don't train them. So it's what's good for the team is good for the customers. We need to train them and get them acclimated, to how we want them to show up, especially when we implement change. We have to tell them again, and then we have to tell them what we told them. And then sometimes we even have to, repeat that process. So that's a good point that you shared, Steve, is this 1,000 days is no matter how great of a plan we may have and we put in place and how great our team is, it's still going to take time, and I hear this all the time. It took way longer than I thought it was going to. And it's like, especially when it comes to change, software implementation, policies, procedures, systems, technology, anything in that boat, it's going to take at least a year before they even start really adopting it and it becomes kind of second nature to them. A good 2 to 3 years before it's just like, walking, talking, anything else. And we're still going to have those palm to forehead moments where we go, we've been using this system for 2 years. What is the challenge here? So, I would definitely advise be flexible, adapt, get feedback from your team, see what needs to change. Like, don't be rock solid about any process that you implement. See where there's room for some flexibility and making adjustments based off of the feedback of your team and even maybe your customers as well. And then, just like we say with goal setting, sometimes it's fluid. Like, we have to see what's the most pressing thing in the moment now, and how can we move on from that? And what do we need? Do we need to shift our focus temporarily because maybe the market, changed? Maybe, the pinch points in the business changed. It could be internal or external factors that we need to consider and be mindful of, and not die on I had this idea and this is how it's supposed to be, hill. Like, we need to be able to adapt and support our team and our ever-changing business.
And, there's challenges around change. One of the questions that I'm always asking myself, right? What do I want? That's on the choice map. What do I want? That's the learner mindset. That's the goal, right? But the next question is, what problem am I solving? And I am known for trying to solve problems that don't exist. Just because it's a cool, creative idea, it's a new thing, but what problem is that solving? So that's where I go back to that hack, like what's keeping me awake at night, what am I talking about, and what drains my energy. So sometimes I'll try to change stuff that's already really great because I'm excited about it. It gives me energy, and I want to stay in that more, but it doesn't need to be changed. So my team, I kind of give them permission to let me know, hey, Steve, that's not a problem. We can move on. We can move past that, because my entrepreneurial free spirit is always looking for stuff. And sometimes I think it's more fun to solve a problem that's not a problem than to take the time and face the challenge that is a problem that I really need to solve, because that is a lot of work. There's vulnerability, there's fear, there's shame in that. So sometimes it's easier to go over and play where I'm already winning than it is. So how do we move? It goes back to mindset into that. Let's fix what's really broken in our company, or what's in our life. Because if you're the owner of the business, if it's broken at work, it's, broken in your life. It's not giving you the time, resources, or money that you're looking for. So what are some of the steps? Like, how do you go about making a plan for that? What would be some of the first steps?
So in making a plan for change, one, if you don't have a strategic plan in place, you need to have one, right? Because if we don't have, typically a strategic plan starts with, what is your mission? What is your vision, right? What's your purpose? Like, why are you here? And what are even some of your core values, which you've probably heard us talk about these before, as immutable laws. So we really need to have those in place, because one, as a business owner, we can get lost in the weeds and lose our focus, right? We've talked about this with the survival trap, where we'll run to all these different things and try to use those as problem solvers, versus just moving towards our goal. And if we're not putting down what our mission, vision, purpose, and our, non-negotiables are as a business, how is our team members going to know what they are, right? We're leaving a lot of room for assumption and a lot of opportunity for not just our employees to create their own narrative, but also our customers to create their own narrative. So they're like, well, I think this company is this way because of their logo or their brand or their brand colors or where they're located, or I know a guy that looks like that guy and he reminds me of them. So I think he's probably going to act like that, in business too. So there's a lot of assumptions. Humans are a very curious people. They love to create narratives and fill in the blanks. So if we don't put it down in black and white, then we're allowing them, more than just a gray area. It's like all the colors of the rainbow to be creative with when it comes to who are we, what direction are we going, why are we here doing what we're doing, and what are our non-negotiables. So that would be, the first step, right, of what do we need to have in place to support this? Because those are going to help support the decision tree with your team members to understand, bottom line, what would we do? What are we going to do? And what wouldn't we do? What would we never do?
And that kind of starts with immutable laws and that mission, vision, purpose statement. I was looking for a quote. It kind of went something like this. If your mission is not strong enough, you look for pleasure. And that could be, goofing off or eating or whatever the pleasure is. If your mission to accomplish something is not clear and strong enough, then you lose your focus, basically. That's what that's saying. So, right. So first action steps is identifying it, who's on your team, what's the goal, what problem does it solve, what are the resources that we have available, and we have to have that clear communication to affect that plan. And then, so we have all that. What if we don't have enough information? So we need training and development.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to look where do we have talents and strengths, but we don't have enough information. And that goes back to information, outcome, permission, confidence, right? Where are we lacking in the information? And when I started on the financial kind of like path in the green industry, because again, I thought if I had the right truck, the right dump truck, the right weed whacker, the right mini head, the right string, my string trimmer line, the right mower deck size, and all this stuff, that I would have a successful business in the lawn care and landscape industry. And I learned the hard way that I needed to have a financial education. So I was lacking in information. So, to understand even what the terms were, I bought a book called Accounting for the Number Phobic. And then I bought another book, Greg Crabtree's book, Simple Numbers, Big Profit, and which was too difficult for me to implement. So then when I found Mike McCallich's, Profit First, I had already had the education and information from the accounting book and from the Simple Numbers book. And then I was ready but that was a 4-year journey. So, but I didn't have enough information to make my cash flow problems or challenges go away. And that's where Profit First came in. And even that I tried to do on my own. I still was lacking information. And then, you helped me with that. We worked together, and that's why we're working together now. But I still was lacking information. So once I gave up I should be smart enough to figure it out, I should know this. And, actually, there's other people who already know this and are, hitting it out of the park every day with this. Why don't I lean into that resource? But I was just lacking information. And we have a client that had he tried to figure out this inventory system on his own for years. And it was just a frustration until he's like, I can figure this out. But when he brought somebody on that knew inventory systems and figured it out for him, that was it. He doesn't touch inventory system. Other people manage it, and it's perfect and mostly perfect. But realizing that we don't have to do that. But there's just information that we don't have. So training, coaching, workshops, tutorials to support your employees too. Because like I was sharing earlier, when I started doing Profit First, after about 6 months, I was like, oh, this is wrong. This is wrong. My bookkeeper and office manager were doing it, but they were doing exactly what I told them, and it was wrong. So I was lacking the information. I passed that lack of information on. That's why I worked really hard to become a certified Profit First professional, and now at the mastery level. But I had to learn all that. That was not natural.
Yeah, and I know we had conversations about that too. To where I was like, Steve, what is happening with these percentages? What's with your Profit First allocation calculator? And you're like, I'm like, why is your office manager or bookkeeper doing this? You're like, well, I told her to do it that way. I was like, okay, tell me more. Like, why? What are you trying to accomplish? So the information is a huge piece, right? Is it information we're lacking when it comes to business acumen? Is it that we just don't know and we're doing our best? And, maybe our team members don't know and they're doing their best. So asking questions got us there. We were pretty quick. We were able to fix it. And your team made an instant adjustment and got things right back on track. And the training and development part is important. Like one of the things, and I'll share this, is at my accounting company, we have our accounting strategists over there do certain courses that help them with coaching and help them ask better questions, right? And we have accountants who are very communicative, and we have others that just like to work behind the scenes. But it's important to us that they know how to ask questions at a deeper level, and in a certain way. So the training and development side has made them better accountants because some of the training we had them do was around mindset. And it's also around, question asking and question thinking. So they show up differently and they have different conversations with our clients because of this training and development. And it was a tool that was introduced because I learned it as a leader. And then I went, oh, I could see how this could really help my team approach their job in a different way, support our clients differently, and even support each other as team members in a different way. So, some of it might be that you need to get your team ready as well to, manage this change and champion this change and support you as a business owner.
Yeah. And I'm so much into that. We have a 1,000-day development plan, and it starts with communication and Clifton strengths and leadership, chief, mindset, and then coaching through the mindset. And we use Green Profit Academies programs. We use Small Giant stuff. We've worked with other coaches. John Bates, who's going to be on the Mind Your Own Business, Speaking Like a Leader. He teaches that course. And that, as much as a speaking like a leader, it really starts with thinking like a leader and being vulnerable, but communicating in a way that really impacts our team. So absolutely the training for the team. I can't do it all. That we have a lot of people we have our emerging leader program, our business accelerator program, and people are bringing their team in because the business owner can't train everybody all the time. So it's a huge impact to have outside resources. Another part of change is that flexibility and adaptability to change. And small business owners are pretty stubborn, like you said earlier. And my adaptability talent theme is 34. It's my last one. So I have, it's a challenge to be adaptable. I love plans. I'll take that back. I love directional plans. We're heading north. I'm not into all the details. Like it's north is 1,084 steps at, 0.08 miles per hour. I'm like, we're heading north and we're driving or we're walking. So I have directional, kind of abilities, but the details really throw me off. Sometimes I'm just not into all the details. That's why I do like numbers, though, because they're always in the same spots in the same boxes. Like that's why I love balance sheets and P&Ls, because everything's always in the same spot. I know my chart of accounts where it lives, and I take comfort in that. But where's your adaptability, Christine, and your talent?
I believe it's number 30.
30.
Yeah. So it's a definite basement strength for me. Yeah.
So we need other people in our lives, in our team, who have higher adaptability to help guide us. I mean, it's not like we're never, not ever adaptable, but how High Strategic handles it with your strengths is you just have 3 or 4 plans for every option.
Yeah. And I also have focus and future that, come into the game too, which really helps me, and achiever. So I'm like, we can create lists so things don't change, or if things do change, we have another list for that. We have a sub list. So our 1, 2, 3s, have sub lists of 1, 2, 3. So we go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then I'm looking out in the future. So, my adaptability is low, but I have other strengths that show up that fill that gap. So I can kind of manage the change and the chaos that does come in my comfort zone and, in my own way, to where I'm like, all right, change is cool if change happens like this. Like, change has rules in my world.
Yeah, and that's a great point. We have to take our talents and use those. So for the adaptability, I have developer and arranger are 6 and 7. So the developer is people, and so I know how to look for other resources in people to manage the adaptability. And also arranger is kind of like what goes where and when does it go there, and that's why I love schedules and agendas. I love agendas. And that's why one of the reasons the calendar was such an issue, because if we're counting on schedules and they're not correct and you have low adaptability, it's a stress point. So I love calendars and agendas. It keeps my adaptability in check, so I don't have to be adaptable. But that arranger and developer definitely helped me, because things change, things get weird, and you're going to have to make adjustments. You just knowing. I have my 5 outcome theory. I don't know if I've shared it on the podcast. So there's only 5 basic outcomes. Things stay the same. They get a little worse or a little better. They get a lot worse or a lot better, right? So that my 5 outcome theory has helped me to really deal with adaptability because I always know there's only 5 outcomes in every situation. I'm sure there's variables, but that helps me. So, you really need to have the flexibility and ability in adaptability, but you're going to have put that on someone else in your team if you don't have it. So just be aware of that.
Yeah. And I mean, the other thing, like my restorative is my number 34. So I'm like, let's just burn it all down and start something new. Like, let's just walk away from it. And for me, that's energizing, right? But for some of my other team members that have high restorative, it's exhausting for them because they're like, but it's a great system. Like we could just fix this. And I'm like, yeah, it's too much of a problem. Let's just trash it. So I've had, I now have high restorative team members to where they're like, well, I think we can fix this. And I go, okay, great, fix it, come back to me, let me know, because then I don't have to restore anything. Like I don't have to fix certain things. I'll just let them know where the gaps are. So, that really helps when we know who we need on our team, we understand who we are and who we aren't, right? Then we can get the right people on our team. I know that has really helped us work well together, Steve. There's things I do not expect of you at all. And, so it leaves that room to where I'm like, I can't be mad because that's just not Steve, and some of my team members, when they first start and they work with you, well, I sent Steve this and I sent Steve that. That's really great. It's not going to work. We can't expect that of Steve. So this is what you can expect. So what else can you do? So they've learned how to work with you as well. And I think that keeps any team member relationship extremely healthy is when we know how we can and can't show up.
Yes. And so I have high influential strengths. 6 out of my top 10 are influential strengths, influencing strengths. So I'm like the lowest percent of the population. So people are not used to dealing with me very often, or people like me very often because we're the lowest percentage of the population. And we're not doers of things. We're not task orientated. It's one of my last skills is the doing of things. So if you're coming from that doing mindset and you're thinking, I'm going to do, it doesn't happen, but it serves me in a certain way. I'm the president on a board of a number of nonprofits, and people love being on my boards because I don't get in their way. I don't take things from them. I don't tell them how to do their jobs. I don't micromanage. My focus is always on mission, serving the mission and the members of the mission that serve that mission. So for me, it's more about the people part of it and support and encouragement and not the doing of things. And people say, oh, just do that and that. And the other thing, it's hard for people to understand. I have both dyslexia and dysgraphia. Everything when writing is hard for me. I might have to try to type someone's name 6 or 7 times. So what's easy? Oh, just type out a 300. No, 300 words is like, that might be, now we have AI, but that could be 4 hours. So people get frustrated because I send short emails, or I love texting, or I just want to talk on the phone, because writing long, complicated emails is impossible for me, actually. It could take me hours and hours because dysgraphia is one of those, you're looking at the R and you go to hit R and you hit L and your brain it's been something. I write words, I spell my name Steve, right? But I'll start with the T and go back and put the S in. So there's all these things that will frustrate people. And you just have to realize that those are not my strengths. Well, Christine has high strategic, and inadvertently, before I was all into Clifton's strengths, I didn't know this. I surrounded my whole life with strategics. I don't have strategic in my top 10, but I brought them into my world unknowingly, very close to my, business, personal life. It was just something that they filled. And it was so amazing to see Christine, my business partner, my chief operating officer, my wife, my good friends, all high strategics in their top 3. So, we're definitely going to be working with different strengths than others. So if you have low adaptability, you're going to have to find somebody to help you with the change. But so how do we work through the change? I was just thinking as we're doing this, I think that's why I love Profit First so much, because it takes all the adaptability out. Like, this is the percentage. That's this percentage. I always know what the percentage is. I always know where the money is. I always know when the money goes out. So it really takes that off my plate. A lot of other people, I would imagine, so I have a hard time understanding why you wouldn't do that. But if you have high adaptability, you probably think, I don't need to know where the money's coming from. I don't need to know when it comes in. I don't need to know where it goes out. We'll just figure it out the day of or whenever, when I don't know. Well, it'll just happen. So that person probably does not need Profit First. They need it.
They need it. What I don't want to say what they need to do is, but really helping understand, like, we may have high adaptability as a leader, but do our team. And we have, on our leadership team, we have strategic as a strength that runs strong in our leadership team. One of the things we had to realize is we're really great at juggling chaos. And we had to be careful because when we work together, we love, kind of throwing fireballs back and forth. And, it's like, oh, they caught that one and they caught that one. Ooh, they caught 3 at one time, right? Like, we get excited about it. But there's other people on our team who just, strategic is not a strong strength for them. Catching and throwing fireballs is not an activity they ever want to be involved in. And it really stresses them out. So we had to be aware that we can't show up that way, all the time. Maybe if we're working on one little project here or there together, that's okay. But we can't spread our joy to other people and think that it's going to be their joy. So same goes with adaptability. If our team isn't adaptable, it's just going to create stress for them. And that is room for opportunity, is where can I be, high adaptability, but not put that obligation on my team. And, that's raising awareness around it.
Yeah. And the whole flexibility part, we have to be flexible. And I think, that's why I have all these theories and ideas like, okay, my flexibility, I know only 1/3 are going to get it right away. And then it's going to take a while for the next third and then the next third. I don't have this, fantasy that everything's going to happen all at once with everybody. That helps me to be more flexible. Change is not a event. It's a journey. It's a trending thing that's going to happen in the business. Is your business going to have to change over time? It will. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And, identifying what we need to focus on first, where's the biggest pain points, and focus on those first. However, the journey, does not end once we've implemented the changes, right? So change management is an ongoing process. You got to monitor it, measure it, evaluate it. Getting back to that 1,000-day theory, find out what's crucial to ensure that it succeeds, like in an infinite concept and not just finite, even though we're measuring it. And small business should, have mechanisms of feedback from the people that are involved in this, and also maybe an outside point of view to assess the effectiveness of the changes and make any necessary adjustments.
Yeah, and these can be, check-ins and huddles or one-on-ones to create that space for that feedback. We gain a lot of awareness from our team when we have those conversations in that space, because it gives us that moment to slow down and pause and be curious and see, okay, what is effective? What isn't? Is there a little adjustment? Is a big adjustment? Tell me more about that. And, just seeing, is it time to make these changes? Is it time to make just a little tweak or a big change?
Yes. I have asked my team many questions, and they're afraid to give me input sometimes, because they're like, if I tell him that change didn't work, he's going to change it again. They don't want to go through the whole thing. So making sure that there's really good feedback, like you were saying, oh, it's not working, burn it. We'll burn it. We'll start from the beginning. And they're like, oh no, we could just turn this dial down over here and maybe turn this lever over here and things will be good. So we have to also realize who's on our team, what they're really saying is it going to be burn the boat on the beach, or is it going to be just turning some levers? So we have to be aware of that and really listen to what they're saying.
Yeah. So I think that ties back to evaluating the impact of the change, right? And being aware as a leader and this is, an area where I've improved is instead of me just saying, well, let's just do something else, understanding, okay, if we do something else, what does that look like? Well, if we do make these small changes, what does that look like? So I've had to slow down and really understand, let's monitor this. Let's see if it changes. If we make these little switches, or adjustments, like, is it going to improve? And then if it doesn't, then what? Like, what is the impact? If we did have to do worst case scenario, what does that create in our company? And in addition to our team capacity, right? Because we have to work on projects and technology improvements, processes and system improvements while we're doing everything else. So where's your team's capacity? How capable are they of implementing these changes? Do you need to tag somebody in to help support this change happen, like a professional or expert? And is that time and money worth spending? Because in the long run, let's say you've been working on it for 2 years, it's not where you want it. You could have spent the same amount of money on paying your team to try to manage this change versus paying a professional who could have already had it done for you, let's say a year or a year and a half ago.
Absolutely. Yep. Lean into some help for sure. Okay. So in conclusion, organizations must take a comprehensive and systematic approach to manage and adapt to change, right? That sounds pretty fancy, but basically you have to really think about it, look at everything that's involved in it and how it's going to affect your company, and not only today, but in the long run, and making sure that we identify these needs that we have to change, make the plan, and then execute that plan.
Yep. And that's what's going to contribute to the long-term success is, being willing to change, start with mindset, continue to gather information, connect with your team, get their feedback, and, that adaptability, and then supporting your team in training, knowledge, education, being flexible, things like that. So I advise don't die on that hill when it comes to change in your business. Really lean into it because it's going to be one of those things that supports your growth and your strategic planning as you move into the future.
Absolutely. So with change, we have 3 types of people with change, right? 3 types of owners. I have activator number 1. I'm like, cool, let's do it. And then, we work with people, they're like, aim. And you're like, please pull the trigger. And then you have the middle of the road, who are kind of like, they're trying to they know they should do it, but they won't do it, or they do it a little bit, but they don't do it all the way. So you have to also realize what your strengths and talents are and make sure you get the right people on your team to help you support that change in your business. Yeah. So thank you very much for listening today in today's episode about insights about how to recognize change and make changes in the plans. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. We'll be back with another episode next week. So subscribe and share. Tell other people in the green industry about this podcast. Tell your friends in the green industry. Tell your vendors. Tell your suppliers. And share. That's how we're going to help people. We're not advertising this all over, the whole universe. So we really, count on you. Help somebody who needs help by sharing this podcast with them. And we'll see you on another podcast. Thanks for listening to the Green Profit Academy Pros Podcast.
the show that digs into the challenges of growing a lawn care and landscape business while maximizing your profit.